Hey everyone, this is Long again, and this is going to be my final video on the Stax SR-X9000. I had a chance to burn in the headphones for about 30 hours using brown noise at a volume that is higher than I typically listen at. And so after the burn-in, I have some further kind of like more refined sound impressions in terms of how it's different from my SR-007 Mark I's. And my initial impressions still stand. I think that my 007 Mark I's do a better job, especially in the mid-range. And I actually noticed something else about the presentation of the X9000s that may make certain recordings sound odd. And the best example that I have of this is actually John Mayer's Gravity. In that particular song, it's mastered in a way where John Mayer's voice sounds kind of low in the soundstage. So he is, when you listen to his voice on the Stax 007 Mark I's, his voice sounds kind of like he's sitting down, and then you're standing up and you're listening to John Mayer singing while he's sitting down, while the instruments are playing in the room in the background. With the SR-X9000, it sounds really weird because the reason why is the SR-X9000 kind of separates the instruments more. It makes the instruments more separated in the soundstage, and so it actually makes John Mayer's voice sound like it's coming from the floor. So his voice would be like kind of in this bottom area, and then the instruments will be kind of far away up here. And so that's one of the songs that I listened to on the SR-X9000 that I felt was it sounded odd because of the wider soundstage that the X9000s have compared to the 007 Mark I's. And so in terms of the mid-range, in the same song, John Mayer's Gravity, the 007 Mark I's makes his voice sound more round. It sounds like his voice is more in like a round, airy bubble versus the X9000s, which makes his voice sound a little bit more two-dimensional. Like it's kind of coming from like a his voice is coming from a rectangular kind of voice box rather than a circular airy kind of like I don't know, like more circular. So it's kind of hard to actually describe these kinds of things, especially when our audio memory, like the sound memory that we have, isn't very good. And so when you're making comparisons, it's actually kind of a chore. Like you kind of have to listen to the song, and then you have to unplug the headphone and replug in the one that you're comparing to, and then play the music as soon as possible so that you can have a good memory of what you heard and compare it to what you're currently hearing. And so, I don't think very many people actually do that. And so if you were listening to the SR-X9000 kind of in a bubble, like that's the only headphone that you were listening to, it's a great sounding headphone, no doubt about it. The audio spectrum on the X9000s sounds great. Like there's nothing that sounds metallic. There's nothing that sounds unpleasing. Like everything sounds like what you would expect the ideal sound to sound like. And that's just describing like the sound itself. Like if you were just listening to the sound and trying to assess the sound, by the frequency, it sounds great. But then when you compare it to the 007s, what the 007s has is like an airiness, the sounds are more rounded and they come in air, like they're packaged in rounded air packages, versus the X9000s, which has, to me, like a more modern sound. Like it's very clean, like it's very light, clean, and effortless. That's very light, clean, and effortless, but at the same time, it's also less dimensional. Like, you don't feel the air surrounding the sound. And I think one of the most, the most infamous review of the Stax 007 Mark 1s is by Darth Nut. Darth as in like Darth Vader, and nut as just like a peanut. So there was a headphone enthusiast named Darth Nut, and he made a really long review of the 007 Mark 1s. And in that review, he describes the 007 Mark 1s as being able to create like a perceptual air. So like you can actually feel the air moving around in the recording. And so that's the one thing that I feel like is very is distinct for the 007 Mark 1s compared to pretty much all the other headphones that I've listened to. And so once again, I just wanted to emphasize that the X9000 is a great sounding headphone, like no doubt about it. Like I think if you weren't like nitpicky and you didn't like do like A/B testing in like a quiet room by yourself with the 007 Mark 1s, you would think that the X9000 was like a really great sounding headphone. Like it does everything well. Like the impact, the slam is very sharp and crisp, and it does have impact. But then the bass on the X9000, I feel like the bass on the X9000 doesn't go as deep or as rumbly as the 007 Mark 1s. It could be because the 007 Mark 1s are lighter weight, maybe, or something like that. But sometimes when I'm listening to the 007s, I would kind of feel like my headphones are rumbling. Whereas with the X9000, I don't really ever get the headphones rumbling. And so, so basically, I'm kind of just rambling on about the sound, but in like kind of like a concluding way, in a way that I don't think the X9000s would change in the next few months of me listening to it, I still think that the 007 Mark 1s is superior in terms of it sounding better more often. So there are some songs where I'm listening on the X9000, especially, for example, AC/DC, Thunderstruck. There are certain rock songs on the X9000 that sounds really good, and I think I have the same amount of satisfaction on the X9000 versus the 007 Mark 1s on certain songs. But I don't think there's any songs or any genres or anything like that where I feel like the X9000 is better than the 007 Mark 1s. And so basically what I'm saying is, the 007 Mark 1s are as good as or better than the X9000s in every single genre, every single song that I can imagine or that I've listened to. And so you can take that for what you think it means, but I'm a big fan of the 007 Mark 1s. And so in terms of the fit of the X9000s, you can see here that the diaphragm is really big, and I don't think there's, unless you have like a really huge head for some reason, I don't think you can ever create like a seal with these headphones. There's always going to be some air gaps somewhere on your heads, considering how big the diaphragm is. And in terms of like listening to these headphones and like, you know, head banging, actually the adjustment clicks here aren't very secure, especially if you're doing a lot of head banging. So like when I first used these headphones, I put the adjustment down to the middle, and after some head banging, they slipped up to the top. So I've kind of given up on the adjustment, and now I'm just leaving the headbands adjusted all the way up to the maximum adjustment on top. So there's no chance that the headband will slip while I'm headbanging. And so, other than that, the headphones are very comfortable. They're just as comfortable as my 007 Mark 1s. And so everything else, it's just the Stax cable, and everything else is very standard Stax. And so, with that, this is the last part of my Stax SR-X9000 impressions. I mean, I wouldn't call this a review because, I'm not like a headphone reviewer. I don't have measurements to provide you. I don't really, I don't have like multiple sources and multiple amps to test out for you. But I'm very confident in what I hear. I've been like in the headphone hobby for about 15 years now, and I've made all the mistakes that newbies make, and like concluding things too quickly and kind of not having a good grasp of what I'm hearing. And now 15 years later, I have like so much more experience. I've listened to the top end headphones of all different types, and so I think I have a good idea of what I'm listening to, and unfortunately, I don't think the SR-X9000 is better than Stax's previous offerings. And so and that's it. So thanks for listening to me, and sorry if I kind of rambled on about the sound and whatnot. I hope you guys find it helpful, and good luck in your search for the endgame system.